Good evening, everyone. It's just great to see so many people here tonight, and I'm really excited to be at this point where I can share with you our plans and priorities for ageing better. It's been quite a exciting few months. I've been able to hit the ground running, and that's very much thanks to all the hard work that Jeff, a core group of trustees, and the small team for the fantastic work that they did. And also for all of you who submitted thoughtful responses to the consultation. It was quite a pile of reading when I arrived in the office. But we have listened to your feedback in shaping the agenda that I want to share with you this evening. I'm delighted, actually, that the feedback was so positive and that you see the opportunity for Ageing Better as an organisation to make a difference. And you encouraged us to focus on the outcomes that matter, and that's what we propose to do. Living longer is potentially the greatest gift of our lives and also a huge opportunity for society. But as well as adding years to life, we need to add life to years, enabling us all to enjoy a good later life. And not only transform how we experience growing old, but also how we think about it. And we're not going to be afraid to speak out and challenge established views and attitudes, particularly where evidence suggests they're ill-informed. As Jeff has already shown, we've got some clear principles at the heart of our work. And one of these, the one that actually was at the top of the list, is a commitment to start with the person that we want to help. And that's also what we've done. And we're really grateful for Ben and the team at Ipsos Mori, who you can go and meet after I finish, for the excellent research. And you've heard, I think, some of the highlights from Ben, but there's lots more to explore. And building on that in the new year, we're going to hold workshops with people aged 50 and over to start and co-design some of the solutions to the issues that today's report has highlighted, and also to think about how digital and technology might help with that. And this is just the beginning of how we plan to embed involvement of people who have lived experience in all of our work. We've really taken the insights from today's report as our starting point, and also reflected on what you have told us to identify a set of topics where we believe we can make a difference over the next 5 to 10 years. We believe they're relevant across the life course, as we've heard, for people in midlife as much as those in later life. We believe they contribute to all the dimensions that make for a good later life, so health, money, and social connections. We want to cut across traditional boundaries and sectors. And we also want to, where we can, focus on those people who are at most risk of missing out on a good later life. So I just want to run through these briefly. So we want people to feel better prepared so that they can confidently manage the sorts of life challenges that they might face, such as, or changes rather than challenges, sorry, such as retirement, bereavement, ill health, or needing care. Secondly, we want people to have access to information and advice that enables them to plan for all aspects of their later life, whether that be money, housing, care, or end of life. And we want people to have the opportunities to develop new skills in later life, whether that be digital or financial capabilities, so they can fully participate in society. We plan to get started early next year on the first of these topics, and our plans are to help to develop some robust measures, to test new approaches to building resilience in later life, and strengthening the evidence of what works in this area. We want people to be active and connected. We've heard about some of those, like my chairman, Jeff, who's very active. But for some people, this is going to mean working for longer. For others, actually getting back into work in their 50s, or taking up other activities. We've heard about volunteering, but other ways in which people can make a contribution to society. But it's also so important from the research that we've heard Ben talk about earlier to really focus on strengthening social connections, as well as staying healthy and active, as we've heard is so important from Muir. And again, we're going to start on the first of these next year, by trying to develop new approaches to supporting people in their 50s into work, as well as strengthening the evidence about what employers can do to support people to work for longer. And we want people to feel in control, particularly those people that we've heard about in the research who are managing deteriorations in their health or are perhaps finding it more difficult to carry out day-to-day activities. So what does this mean? It means homes that are built suited to people's needs as they age, neighbourhoods that are designed and planned to be age-friendly, and communities that support each other and care for each other. We'll start work next year on the first of these topics, bringing together the evidence of what works in terms of adapting current housing stock, as well as supporting the use of evidence in some of the new housing developments. So that's what we plan to do. I'd like to just say a few words, if I may. I know that everybody's been standing for a while, just about how we're going to work. Obviously, as a What Works Centre, we're about evidence. We'll synthesise what we already know about what works, but we'll also strengthen the evidence about our understanding of what contributes to a good later life. And our Director of Evidence, Catherine Foote, who's here tonight, will lead this work. And as Jeff said, while we're driven by evidence, we're ultimately focused on delivering change. So we're going to support innovation by seeding and testing new approaches, as well as supporting the sustainability, spread and scaling up of things that we find work, or indeed that others have found work. But above all, we're going to share what we learn. We want people to act on what we know. And we also want to secure change by influencing others, some of you in this room, but plenty more out there, who can help with this agenda. And we're really keen to build on work of others and ensure we don't duplicate, and build on the wealth of experience and expertise, much of it in this room. We also want to test out some of these different ways of working, and we're going to move quite quickly to implement those first set of programmes on managing major life change, increasing opportunities for work and volunteering, and ensuring individuals live in homes and neighbourhoods that suit them. But on some of those other topics, we want to spend longer sort of working out what the best thing to do is. And part of this evening is that we want to hear your ideas and suggestions to find out more, both about what others are doing, what we already know, and where we could have most impact. I want to say another thing about how we're going to work. We're obviously in London tonight, but really keen not to be a London-centric organisation. And some of the small team have already been out meeting with forums around the country. But we want to, and we'll say more about this next year, actively seek out local partners across the country, as well as obviously learning from further afield and indeed abroad. But I believe that in order to really demonstrate sustainable change and transformation in terms of age-friendly places, we'll want to build a few long-term relationships with a few local areas, people that share our ambitions. So the Director of Innovation and Change, whose appointment I hope to announce in the next couple of weeks, will be developing these local place-based partnerships. So that's about how we're going to work. Well, before I finish, if you'll indulge me, I just wanted to share a story about my grandmother. Because partly her life is my inspiration and has really shaped my views on ageing better. She was called Frida, and here she is. She was born on a farm at the edge of the Lake District. She was a very active young woman in the 1920s. I've read her diaries, and it's quite exhausting. On top of various farm duties, collecting eggs and making butter, she studied at agricultural college, and I think she would have made a model wife for any of the local farmers, but she instead fell in love with my grandfather Herbert, who became a teacher. And they moved to my hometown of Ilkley in Yorkshire back in the 1950s, and he taught there at the local grammar school. He was not far off retirement when one wintry day in December, probably about 46 years ago, not far off today, they were driving up to see the family up in the lakes to deliver some early Christmas presents. They had a car accident. My grandfather was killed outright. My grandmother had head injuries, and she was in coma for 6 weeks. So when she woke, she not only had to deal with the loss of her husband, she'd missed the funeral, but she also had to learn to walk again, to feed herself, to dress herself. But she was a pretty remarkable woman. She didn't stop there. She taught herself to write with her left hand. She took up knitting. I've still got some of the bed socks at home. She travelled alone to Australia and Zambia to visit grandchildren, and she was a mean Scrabble player, beating most of the family and friends. and she was a great one for keeping in touch with friends and family. And she lived with us when I was a baby, but when the first sheltered accommodation opened in Ilkley, she was the first resident, and in fact was the longest, because she went on to live for 30 years. Most of that was independently. And although she totally depended on others to go out, she actually found much to give life purpose and pleasure. So for me, ageing better is not necessarily a life free of disability or illness, although we know from Muir that ageing is not defined by that. But it is to feel valued, to feel connected, to be able to give and receive, to take decisions and have control over one's life. And I think it has the potential to be a hugely positive time of our lives. So I'm passionate about change, and I'm excited about the opportunity to work on what I think is the biggest social issue of our time, ageing. Tonight is the beginning. We've got secure funding with thanks to the Big Lottery Fund for 10 years. So we're in a very privileged position, and we're clear that we don't hold all the solutions, but we do want to work with others and forge new and innovative partnerships to deliver change. So there's my grandmother celebrating her 90th. There are staff here tonight. We've all got badges with Centre for Ageing Better on, as well as trustees and associates. And I really would encourage you now to speak to them. We do want to hear from you, to hear your ideas about how together we can build a society in which everybody enjoys a good later life. Thank you.